Yeah.
Zosia Mamet plays Annie Meridian on The Flight Attendant on HBO Max. I'm Riley Chow of Gold Derby. Now, your character is the lawyer and best friend to Kaley Cuoco's flight attendant character, who is covering up a crime scene at the start of the series. And I think you've said that you or Annie actually would have done a much better job at cleaning up the crime scene. I'm wondering, in preparing for this role, going through this role, what do you think you would do differently if you ever found yourself in such a situation?
Oh man. I mean, I certainly hope that I don't. I'll knock on wood for that. Um, but yeah, I think, Cassie is an incredibly impulsive individual, and Annie is someone who really thinks things through. I think that she plays things out in her mind. I think it's why she's so good at what she does, whereas Cassie, um, is a bit more like me in real life. I kind of I've had friends say I shoot from the hip. Like I just sort of I do something from a gut reaction. And I think that's a lot what Cassie is like. Whereas Annie is someone who like stops and assesses and is like, okay, if I did X, Y, or Z, like what would that lead me to? And so yeah, I always said that, I think Cassie reacts as many people would from an incredibly emotional place when she wakes up next to Alex's dead body. And I think Annie probably would have been a bit more unfeeling and probably stoic about it and like have really played out the whole scenario and probably cleaned things up a little better and not made as many crazy choices. But then the show wouldn't have been as much fun. So
I feel like in this first season, Annie kind of breaks bad in that she's, increasingly getting involved with the mob and other shady dealings. And I'm wondering, is this something that she, do you think, is embracing, or is it just, totally traumatizing and turning her off?
I think it's a lot a part of her journey in the first season. And I think it's something that she has been aware of throughout her entire career. I think she's very good at compartmentalizing, but I think she's always known that she's worked for shady characters, but because she never has direct contact with what they're actually doing, she references it at one point that she'll help them with like computer fraud or things like that. But she actually knows what these people are really doing and what they're protecting them from. And but I think she's just always kind of been in denial about that. But once she has to make that call in order to save her best friend, she crosses a boundary. And then slowly throughout season one, it becomes harder and harder for her to lie to herself about what she's actually doing. And I think, that scene in the prison is a real turning point for her. And she starts to realize once she's truly faced with what she actually does for a living and who are truly the people that she works for, she realizes that she actually doesn't really have the stomach for it. And I think she starts to develop a bit more of a moral compass and realize that she maybe doesn't want to work for these people anymore.
Yeah, she's out of a job at the end of the first season. The second season doesn't start filming till the fall, I think. Do you know
Mhm.
anything about it?
I know very little about it. I know that they've been writing away. I know that we're going to Los Angeles. So Annie hopefully gets a tan. Um, but beyond that, it's just sort of the basics. I know that Cassie is trying to stay sober and Annie follows her out there. And, I think it's just sort of a continuation for Annie of her now that she has come to terms with like who she's been and what she's done. And it's sort of similar for Cassie. It's like they've both made these extreme jumps. They're like, I don't want that past life that I was living. But uh, there's a quote I heard a long time ago that I've always loved, which is epiphanies are great, but the hard part is what you do after them. I think like they both have sort of had these real epiphany moments where they're like, oh my God, I can't keep living my life this way. But then now season two is watching them figure out, okay, well, if I can't live my life that way, who am I and how do I live my life going forward? And so that's sort of those are the broad strokes of what I've been told in terms of like the emotional arcs of the characters in season 2 and physically where we're going. But beyond that, I'm just an actor, so I normally don't get the details until very close to when we start filming.
That's good. You don't have to keep anything secret then.
Totally. I'm not great at keeping secrets.
You said that this role was very meaningful for you because it really gave you a chance to flex a different acting muscle versus, various roles that you played or tried out for since Girls. So I'm wondering what was different about this role?
I felt as if, I love comedy and I really fell in love with it on Girls, but to me, I felt like Annie is still very much a comedic character, but she's really the straight man to Cassie's, kind of loud, zany messiness. And that was something that I hadn't really been given the opportunity to do. I've always sort of been the one playing like the super loud, zany character. And she's very funny, but it's a very dry, sardonic, subtle wit. And so I was really excited to be able to like play the straight foil, play like the grounding character to her like very high. We would say that Kaley was like always at an 11, and I feel like Annie is the one that kind of brings her down, and also get to still play a comedic role, but on the total opposite end of the spectrum of the character of Shoshana, who is just like so loud and open and like hard on her sleeve, and Annie is someone who is like so incredibly buttoned up and just like buries her emotions as in a place where she hopes to never find them again. And her comedy is just like incredibly dry and sharp. And she's very much to me like a shark of a human. And so she just felt like a totally different creature, and I was really excited to get to try that suit on for size.
And what was your perception of Kaley Cuoco before starting the show? Because you were on a show that was at the complete opposite end of the spectrum from the show that she was on, where you were on kind of a more experimental or auteur-driven, HBO show, Girls, and then she's on more of a throwback, with a studio audience with The Big Bang Theory.
Kaley and we didn't really know each other before the show. We didn't know each other personally. And I was really intrigued, as someone who was pigeonholed a bit post Girls, like having played this, like I said, like this incredibly loud, specific, zany character. I knew that she had as well. And so I was super impressed by the fact that post Big Bang, she was taking this huge swing and producing her own content and creating something that was so drastically different from what she had done before. So I already was so deeply impressed with that choice, because I knew that she must be feeling the pressure of everybody being like, what's she going to do next? Which I certainly felt as well. When a show ends, that's a success like that, there are all these eyeballs on you being like, okay, well, what's the next step? So I was already super impressed with her, just knowing that that's what she was doing. And I read the script and I was so impressed with the script and the material. And I had a chemistry read with her as my audition, and we just like immediately fell in love. And we both have very similar processes as actors. That to say, we don't have a big process. We don't like great backstories, or, we haven't classically trained, and we both just love to play and dive in wholeheartedly, which happened immediately once the camera started rolling in our audition. And our Annie, Cassie, and Zosia Kaley friendship was just like immediately born in that moment. And yeah, I don't know. I always say it was kind of love at first sight.
Nice. You were nominated at the SAG Awards this year for Outstanding Performance by an Ensemble in a Comedy Series. But I think pretty much everyone in the ensemble, or it seems like most of them aside from Kaley Cuoco, like Rosie Perez, Mikhail Hausman, Kiara Knight, did you work with any of them or get a chance to meet them?
We got a chance to meet, thankfully. We had a lot of our table reads together in the beginning. And obviously this was pre-pandemic. We Kaley and everyone, Susanna and Steve, were all very big on like us bonding as a cast, even those of us who weren't working together. So, I think we had our first table read, and that night we all went to an escape room together, which was so much fun. So we all got a chance to meet, which was great. But no, I didn't really get to work with many of the other cast, which was a bummer because they're all so amazing. But we all crossed paths a lot, on the set, especially when we were shooting at the studios. And I've said this a lot in prior press, but we had this amazing thing that happens so rarely, where every single human being in our cast and crew genuinely adored each other, even those of us who weren't working together. Like, I would run into McKeel a lot in the makeup trailer, and he's just like the loveliest human being. And we would talk about his daughter and who loves vintage clothes. And I like told him about my favorite place to go, and he took her there and sent me a photo of it. And so we were really, we were all like very sociable as a cast, and we all genuinely loved each other. But it was a bummer because we had this kind of embarrassment of riches in terms of talent. And I was like, I want to work with all of you. But I'm hoping in season 2, maybe we'll get a chance. Griffin and I constantly talk about how we're going to make them write an Annie Shane storyline.
Steve Yockey, he says that he considers episodes 5, 6, and 7 the Annie corridor. You have a lot more material there. If you're nominated for an Emmy, you'll have to submit one episode for viewing availability on the Academy website. I'm wondering if one of those ones is what you consider your best showcase from the first season.
Ooh, that's tough. I think probably episode 6. There are 2 fight scenes in episode 6 between me and Kaley, and I read them very early on, and was pretty much nervous to shoot them from the moment I read them, just because I feel like, sort of echoing what I said before, their friendship is so entrenched. There's so much history. We didn't talk about much other than in terms of specifics, but Steve and Kaley and I discussed a lot that we think they've been friends probably since they were young kids. And so the idea of ending a friendship like that is almost like a divorce. It's such an intense breakup. And so I so desperately wanted to play those scenes honestly, and like with the most heart and like true heartbreak of what it takes for friends like that to get to that place where they decide to break up. And particularly the second fight scene where she shows up, Cassie and Buckley show up drunk at Annie's apartment, where it's like, it's over. Weirdly, that was one of the most fun scenes that I experienced shooting with Kaley. I think because it was like so challenging, and our wonderful director for that episode had this great note. We sort of started playing it like quite big, and he was like, I actually think this scene is so incredibly quiet because you both have nothing left, and that's what gets you to the point where it's time to end a friendship, when you don't even have any fight, you have no gas left in your tank. And it was such an amazing note, and it immediately clicked for Kaley and I. And to me, it was like we were crying in between takes because it felt, we were like, I'm so sorry that I have to say this to you. But it was one of those sort of dream days as an actor where you get such a meaty scene, and you have such great writing and such a great director and such a great scene partner. And you get to I always say it's like you leave it all on the field. And you get home that night and you're just exhausted emotionally. But like, it feels so good. It's kind of like when you work out really hard and the next day your muscles are sore in that great way. And so the experience of filming that scene was really, really it was like a cherry on top as an actor. It's one of those scenes that you get kind of rarely, and when you get it, it's just like, it's just so wonderful. It's almost like a high. And so I really loved filming that, and I'm really proud of that scene. So I think I'd probably choose that episode.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to take another look at that one. Okay, Sasha, well, thanks very much for chatting with Gold Derby today.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.